Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurul Ashiki binti Muhammad Azwan. I am from AM1102L. So, in this video, me and my friends will talk about the new economic policy in Malaysia. New economic policy was a policy that had been introduced by our old Prime Minister, which is Tun Abdul Razak. This policy has been implemented for 20 years, which is from 1970 to 1990. This policy was created because there was some problem that had happened in 1969. Looking back to our history, in 1969, there was a racial riot that happened in Malaysia, which is on 30 May 1969. This racial riot was happened at Kuala Lumpur. The main factor of this riot happened is because the socio-economic imbalance among the ethnic group. What is most interesting in this policy is this policy was the first long-term policy that had been implemented in Malaysia. The launching of this policy was a watershed in the Malaysian economic policy history, and this policy also one of the factors that bring harmony to our country. It is just a good sign when our Prime Minister on that time was so intelligent to implement this new economic policy. Also, this new economic policy has united the people in Malaysia until now. As we know, new economic policy was introduced after the political crisis of May 1969. So, after the 20 years of implemented this new economic policy, the NEP objective was not achieved. One of the objectives that new economic policy did not achieve was to increase the ownership of corporate equity in Malaysia. In 1970, there were three categories that government target in the corporate equity. There is Bumi Putra, other Malaysian, and foreigners. So from this category, only Bumi Putra does not achieve their target, which is the target is 30%. In 1990, Bumi Putra only get the 19.3% of the corporate equity. So automatically, a new economic policy does not achieve its objective. From the percent that Bumi Putra get, there was a quite far from the target of government. So it's hard to continue the new economic policy. The problem that new economic policy faced while implemented this policy was it promotes a laid-back attitude among the Bumi Putra. This is because government keep giving initiative to Bumi Putra that make them become lazy. Because of getting too many initiative from the government, so the Bumi Putra always felt that the government will help them when they need something. As a Bumi Putra, I think we should stop practicing this kind of attitude even in this era of the world. This is because in this era of the world, people become more competitive. If we, as a Bumi Putra, still in the old notch, so we will never grow our Bumi Putra economic in Malaysia.
I'm going to talk the main objective of new economic policy. Okay, as everyone know, the history of May 1969 I still remember in our society, and this was a huge history for our country. Okay, so since then the Malaysian government has established new economic policy by our Prime Minister Tun Abdul Razak in 1970. However, the official implementation is in 1971. Okay. The duration for NEP is 1970 until 1990. Okay, there are only have two objectives for new economic policy. I'm going to talk about the first one. Firstly is to extend the poverty. As everyone know, the history of May 30, 1969 are caused by the races, the gap between the races. Okay, the races means Malays, Chinese, and Indian. They are totally different between Malays and Chinese and Indian. It is because the Chinese and Indian have been working in city. But for Malays, we are live in rural area and we are working in rural area. So they have a difference from income, from their income. They are totally different. Okay? That is one of the reason the history of meditating was happened. Okay? However, for overall poverty on that time is 49.3%, and it was the worst percentage for our country. That's why the government try to fix the problem. Okay? However, the government has taken a few initiative for our society. For example, like create agriculture and trade group by the Bumi Putras and create a working environment. There is the one of way the governments want to fix the problem about the income by the races, also want to fix our society and work together in one country. We're going to move to our next objective, which is restructuring society. Okay, the government has launched a few programs like industrial, agriculture, construction, and transport. Okay, all courses are conducted by the government. Also, government is the hospitable all levels of society and irrespective of races. This can be because the government want to make sure that our society and each races have their own way to get the income. However, the government has provide the sources or give a help by providing the service. The only things that the society for that time need to think is how the way that they can get the money. Okay? One more, the important things that need to be highlighted is the governments want to increase ownership among Malaysian, especially for Bumi Putras. Okay? Also, the government wants to reduce structural imbalance and use the existing workforce in a progressive manner and through economic growth in 1990. For the Malays, we have special privilege. This is often to confirm that the Malays are not stay in the old time, the old days. If you look now, each institution or sector of employment or public sector, there are more wants to find the Malays employee. Okay? And if you look now, there are more population of Malay workers if want to compare with another races. Okay, so I'm going to start to talk about actors in policy. As well as known, the leader of new economic policy is Tun Abdul Razak. However, he got a help from their own cabinet, and the deputy of minister for that time is Tun On. Also, a few agencies in policy making. Not only that, there are a list that I'm going to talk name of agencies such as Mara, Felda, Agriculture, and also the government has successfully established a few another agency such as Kejora, Ketengah, and Kesedah. Not only that, the agriculture and industrial sector are also being provided to make opportunities to our society for working, especially the races that came from Malay, Chinese, and Indian. The plan also helped the government to fix the problem between the races. And the government also can increase the economic income by all the races are work in one sector together. Okay? Even in the Malaysian plan, the government has been concerned about education by providing educational and training programs to increase the number of highly educated Bumi Putra as the restructuring effort. Okay, so there are a few agencies that I thought Kejora Mara, Kesedah, Ketengah. All of them are involved in policy making. Okay, that's all.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Irshad bin Muhammad Azhar. I will be presenting for my group on the topic of new economic policy. So my topic that I will be discuss is the evaluation on the effectiveness of the new economic policy and the new economic policy weaknesses. So before we started, I would like to thank my lecturer of PAD 104, Ms. Adeline Jasmine, for her effort in teaching us in this pandemic situation. And also, I would like to thank my teammates, Arisa, Ariana, Shikin, and Nabila for their effort that they put in this assignment and presentation. So without further ado, let's get started. So before we understand, before we evaluate the effectiveness of the new economic policy, we must understand the purpose of the new economic policies. So there are two main purpose of the new economic policy, which is the first one is to evaluate or to abolish um, poverty rate among the Malaysian. So in 1970, a few years after the 13 May tragedy, the poverty rate among Malaysians are very high, especially among the Malays, which is estimated to be 64.8%, while Chinese will be in around estimated to be around 26%, and Indians, and I'm sorry, and Indians at 39.2%, which is the gap of this gap between Malays and Indians and Chinese, the gap between Malays and Chinese and Indian around estimated to be around 172 ringgit per household. That's mean the Malays are the income of the Malays are much lower, about 172 ringgit lower than the Chinese and Indian. Okay, so that is around 1970. In 1980s, 10 years after the new economic policy have been introduced, the number of the poverty rate in Malaysia are declined from almost 70% of poverty rate to 29.2% only. So it's a quite big gap there, and it is estimated to be around 666,100 people still under poverty rate, but still for 10 years from 70 to 29%, quite an accomplishment, but not so efficiently. Yes. So the second purpose of the new economic policy is to restructuring the economic balance between races. So we know that in that time in 1970, people are being separated in work by their races. The Chinese in a certain field of work, and Malays in a certain field of work, and also the Indians and the others and the Burmese. So they are being separated. So this has contributed to the huge gap between has contributed to the poverty rate and also the racial tension in the workforce. So this is one of the uh, purpose. So but we can see that nowadays all ethnic regardless their background can work in one place and together to achieve the organizational goals. So it's quite an accomplishment, but it's not the best of the NEP. So that's all for the evaluation of the effectiveness. It is effective um, but still need to be improved. So then we go to the weaknesses. So there are a few weaknesses of the new economic policies, which is the first one. There's a tension between non-Bhumis and the Bhumiputras in workforce, especially when the government in 1975, the government are encouraging that the foreign or the non-Bhumis company must joint venture with the local Malays and the Bumiputras to in their company. So this has raised some issue in the non-Burmese community. Some of them they call it as a forced interracial corporate marriage. So it's quite a huge a hard uh, a hard block over there. Yes. So that is one of the weaknesses of the new economic policies. So I think that's all from me. So that's all from me. So thank you very much for watching. Assalamualaikum.
Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone, especially to my fellow lecturer Miss Adeline. I am Mira Ariana binti Hizri from AM1102L. On behalf of my group, I will be presenting on the advantages and strengths of new economic policy. So without further ado, the first advantages of new economic policy is that it improves the education level of Bumiputra people. So basically, with new economic policy and the implementations made, education levels of Bumiputra people were able to be improved, not only up until secondary school, but nowadays a lot of Bumiputra people are able to enroll into universities and get the chance for education. So basically, nowadays a lot of Bumiputra people also further studies overseas and specialize in certain courses like medicine, law, and also engineering and architecture, even business. So basically, to make this this is considered as an advantage because it really does help improve the education levels of Bumiputra people. And the policy actors have tried to make this advantage come true as they provided scholarships and funds for scholarships and education centers. As an example, in primary and secondary school, textbooks were provided so that students and children were able to receive easy access to education. So basically, with this advantage, it really gave a lot of impactful outcomes out of new economic policy, especially towards Bumiputra people. So moving on to the next advantage, which is decreasing the rate of poverty amongst Bumiputra people. This is considered as an advantage, and it is linked to the first advantage, which is improving education levels. Basically, by improving education levels, we are able to decrease the rate of poverty. Like I have stated, a lot of Bumiputra people now specialize in professional courses and fields like medicine, law, and architecture, which is when they enter the working world, they're able to realize their ambition with the courses that they have taken. Like obviously, someone who took on medicine will obviously work in the medical field, like doctors and such. And nowadays, a lot of doctors are Bumiputra people working in prestigious hospitals and such. And it also decreases the rate of poverty as it improves the lifestyle of Bumiputra people, since they were given opportunities for jobs and professional careers to improve their lifestyle, like becoming a lawyer, doctors, and all that. And with decreasing the rate of poverty and also improving the education levels, a lot of Bumiputra people were also able to enter the middle class of the society, which, like I've stated, decreases the rate of poverty amongst Bumiputra people. And moving on to the next advantage or strength is that with the implementations made and the strategies planned by new economic policy, it is helpful in closing the abyss between children who study in the city and outside of the city. So basically this means that with new economic policy, students from everywhere, Bumiputra students or children from everywhere are able to receive the same amount and capacity of education. As in cities, obviously there is more easy access to internet and other technologies, that help students study. So basically, new economic policy has provided that same advantage to students who are outside of the city, especially in places like villages and such. And one of the implementations made to make this advantage give good outcomes is that experienced teachers were sent to the village to help students in the village gain the same amount of education students outside of the village are receiving. And information technology are also provided where all students are able to learn about technology and also receive education through technology in this very modern era. So that is one of the advantages of new economic policy. And next, the last advantage of new economic policy is increasing the success rate. This is considered as an advantage as it shows that Malay people or Bumiputra people are able to become successful with the implementations made. And it was also one of the objectives in under new economic policy. So basically, it's proven that it has increased the success rate, which is one of the good outcomes of new economic policy, which is more than 60% of Bumiputra students are able to get into universities and enroll in public courses like law, medicine, and a lot of Malay students are able to enroll in IPTA courses and receive the same amount of education. And with the education received, they were able to gain success and graduate with first-class honors and such. So basically, nowadays, because of this increased success rate, which is one of the outcomes, is an advantage and also a good outcome, as it made Malaysia one of the good places for education. So basically, it is considered as an advantage as it gives us strength. So next, I will be presenting on the implementations made under the new economic policy. One of the implementations made under the new economic policy was the placement of FELDA. So basically, the placement of FELDA was to reach the country's socio-economic goals in that aspect, and it was also mainly linking back to one of the main objectives of new economic policy, which is to eradicate the rate of poverty. This is also mainly planned on the village side, as those in the village struggle a bit more compared to those in the city. So basically, the placement of FELDA was planned based on modern policy, to help modernize everything, so it has to be planned modernly. And it also provides job opportunities and chance in success, and improves lifestyles for these villagers. One of the things under placement of FELDA was land ownership, which will be our next implementation, which is the second implementation, which is land ownership. So basically, linking back to the placement of FELDA, this is also considered an implementation under the placement of FELDA. Basically, it's also an implementation under new economic policy. So basically, with land ownership, it means when FELDA gives an individual or a settler a land for them to work on and have plantations and all of that. So basically, it's like a contract thing. It comes with rules and regulations, and the rules and regulations is to protect the security of the land and to make sure that no careless things are being planned for the land, and it secures the security of the land and the contract between FELDA and the individuals. So basically, also one of the reasons why land ownership is an implementation, like I stated, since one of the main objectives of new economic policy is to eradicate rate of poverty. This helps individuals in being more successful, improving their lifestyle, as in they have something to work on. And with the contract given, it is also maintained that the rules and regulation will not be breached, and the land will be handled not carelessly, and it cannot just carelessly go into the hands of someone else. Also, it helps individuals who are struggling, and it helps reach the goals of the country, which is to help those who are struggling, those who are experiencing poverty. It links back to the first implementation, which is FELDA placement. So basically, these two implementations link to each other and is connected to each other in a way. And still, two of the main goals of these implementations is to help individuals improve their lifestyles, like, you know, by providing job opportunities, land ownerships, and such. And okay, moving on to the next implementation of new economic policy. This implementation is basically based on education. So basically, this implementation is also made under the advantage that new economic policy is to close the abyss between students who study in the city and students who study outside of the city. So basically, village and city children. So basically, to help, the implementation made to help improve education under the new economic policy was that experienced teachers were sent to the village to help students study and receive education and have the same amount of capacity of education received like city children, those in the city. And basically, it is also to provide a fair competition between these two sides. Like, everyone is getting the same amount of capacity, the same amount of time and education. And also, information and technology was also one of the implementations made under the education aspect for new economic policy. This is providing access mainly to students who are in the city, who are in the village. So basically, the information and technology, like computers and such, all students were introduced to this in order to make studying and learning easier. With the help of the policy actors, these implementations were able to be realized. And moving on to the next implementation of new economic policy, which is development of infrastructure within the community, mainly on the village side. This is also linking back to FELDA. Basically, it is said that without this developments of infrastructure within the community, our socio-economic goals of the country will not be able to be reached. Therefore, it was really important that these implementations were made. And basically, the implementations made for development of infrastructure was that roads were built and water and electricity supply were given to the villagers and also FELDA settlers in order to give them easy access to everything, just like those who are not in the village. So basically, places like schools were also provided. This also falls under the implementation based on the education, on the education aspect of new economic policy. Schools were provided, so students and children were able to go to school to receive education and to increase education level, which is one of the strengths of new economic policy. And of course, health matters, medical health, which is physical health and like mental health. There were centers provided for these health, like small clinics were built in order for those in the village to get easy access to medication. And also for mental health, there were like centers to help calm people down and stuff. And of course, there were mosques where people can go and pray and have religious events like Hari Raya or like Friday prayers, even simple things like that. And moving on, convenience stores and supermarkets were also under the development of infrastructure. This is also one of the implementations made under new economic policy. This is to give access to villagers for them to buy their everyday needs and necessities. And yeah, they were provided with these supermarkets and convenience stores to make it easier for them. Meaning like it shows that even in like a village you have all these necessities just like everyone else, which is one of the points of new economic policy. So basically, a lot of improvements will be able to make with all these implementations I have just stated.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I'll be doing the recommendations for new economic policy. In this early of year, we had a pandemic going on, and we had our first cases in March, where the government had done MCO, which is called Mover Control Order, making almost all of the shops and stores to be closed down, making some of the people who work or employees to have lost their incomes during the pandemic, making at the same time also making the economy downfall. During this pandemic also, the MCO, a lot of us has lost their jobs and incomes at the same time, making the economy also downfall. Despite of having MCO and also the economy downfall, the government did try their best to make sure the country economy is going back as usual as possible, even though the borders of the country is closed down to avoid any cases spike up in our country. One of the recommendations that can be made to restabilize the country's economy is that we as citizens or as customers buying everything via online, meaning that we can buy our groceries, our clothes or tools or anything via online, because if we buy something via online, the business would need riders to send those parcels or things to the customer's house, meaning that those riders if like unemployment people would work for those riders, work as riders, they will have income, but as also at the same time the economy of the country will go on as usual, even though there's a lockdown going on. Because if the economy of the country does not regenerate or rolling, how do we get our income? So buy things via online. The second recommendation that can be made or that can be put on is that our economy can be also solely based on the medical field, because nowadays medical field is so important, especially during this pandemic, because during this pandemic most of the medical sections are taken lightly because they are more mainly focused on the pandemic. So if we are focused on our economy on the medical sector, our citizens will get health treatment right and their health will be alright. So having medical sectors in our economy would benefit the country, because if our medical treatment is modern and also at the same time is really good, other people from other countries will come to our country to get their treatment here, and making that their money is inside our country and generate the economy of our country. To wrap everything up is that NEP, New Economic Policy, plays a lot of role, or could I say the main role in development of our country. In our country, we have Chinese, Malay, Indian, Kazakh, and many other races. Is that even though we are different races, and we have one vision to come together, where we can work together as one Malaysia to help develop our country. So having a stable economy and working together not only help us to focus in the economic sectors, but also other sectors such as the education sector, the development sector, and etc. and many more. So if we all work together, no matter put aside our race, but as our a nation, we could achieve the new economic policy vision. Thank you for your time spending on listening to our presentation. Goodbye. Thank you.